print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Paul Denning, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Service. This is the December 16th issue. Village approves firefighter pact. This is written by M.J. Stafford. Fredonia Mayor Michael Ferguson broke a Board of Trustees tie to approve a new contract with the village's professional firefighters last week. The unusual situation occurred because Trustee Nicole Syracuse recused herself from the vote, and the four remaining trustees tied. Trustees Ben Brockler and Michelle Twitchell voted against the contract, while John Esperson and Paul Wandell voted in favor of it. The contract contains pay raises for the firefighters, but dollar figures were not explicitly specified, except in comments by Brockler, who suggested they would lead to property tax hikes. The resolution as read by Esperson mentioned that the Village and Fredonia Professional Firefighters Association, Local 2931, had a collective bargaining agreement that expired May 31. Under state law, public employees work under their previous contracts if they expire before a renegotiated deal is approved. The Village and Firefighters Union reached a tentative settlement November 13, and the union's membership ratified it pending Board of Trustees approval, according to the resolution. The new contract is to expire May 31, 2029. I'm not going to second this because I'm not going to vote aye on this contract because of the unknown costs for our budget, Twitchell said. I have a lot of difficulty with this one, Brockler said. I did discuss the costs of this at our workshop, and we are baking in a 3% annual increase in our taxes in future years going forward with this. So I am going to say no. Esperson and Wandell voted without comment. Ferguson was told he would get to break the tie. Based on the fact that we wouldn't pass a contract unless we knew what the cost was to us, and I've been assured that this is a cost-effective contract, I'm going to say yes, Ferguson said. Brockler's workshop comments indicated that the contract will increase fire department payroll by $65,000 this year and by $75,000 annually in subsequent years. That is no different than the police contract we approved, Esperson replied. It was dictated, I'm going to say mandated, by the mediator. If it went to arbitration, the arbitrator would demand we spend the same amount of money on their benefits as we did police. So it was going to be foisted on us either way. So it wasn't anything we could have avoided. Esperson asserted that Treasurer Ulyssa LeBeau had planned for the compensation increases in the village budget. Next article is in the local region, Westfield. Giving winner reveals hospital connections. One of the lucky prize winners in the Westfield Memorial Hospital Foundation's 10 Days of Giving for WMH raffle is Julie Landholt of Westfield. Landholt was ecstatic to learn she won a Weber Spirit 2 grill during the Foundation's annual fundraising raffle, held November 17 to 26. Landholt, who recently moved back to Westfield from Los Angeles, California, is the daughter of former hospital administrator Byron Landholt, who led the hospital during the 1970s when it operated out of the historic Spencer House. Her family's long-standing connection to the hospital made the win especially meaningful. "It feels wonderful to be part of the community again," Landholt said. "Westfield Memorial Hospital has always held a special place in my family's story, and I'm grateful to support the Foundation's mission. Winning the grill was such a fun surprise." The hospital's current administrator, Rodney Buchanan, DNP, shared the importance of community involvement in sustaining local health care. Quotes, "Community support is at the heart of everything we do. Fundraisers like 10 Days of Giving help us continue providing exceptional care, and we're thrilled to celebrate participants like Julie, who make our work possible." Hospital and foundation leaders applauded the efforts of the community, which donated more than $14,000 in gifts in kind and $13,000 in ticket sales to benefit the hospital. The executive director of the WMH Foundation also expressed gratitude for the strong community support. Quotes, "The 10 Days of Giving for WMH raffle is one of our favorite traditions because it brings our community together in such a positive way," said Patricia Gaughan de Palma. "Every ticket purchased directly supports patient care and vital hospital services. We're grateful for donors like Julie, whose involvement helps strengthen the future of our community hospital. All are invited to give to the WMHF annual campaign by returning their gift, made payable to WMH Foundation, by December 31 to the WMH Foundation, located at 189 East Main Street, Westfield, New York, 14787. For those who would like to learn more about the Hospital Foundation, contact Patty at patricia.depalma@ahn.org or call 716-793-2338 or visit the Foundation's website at www.westfieldhospitalfoundation.org. Next article. Arkwright passes dog law, plans hearing. Written by Braden Carmen. Arkwright. The town board is taking steps to protect quality of life for the majority of its residents, following complaints of a select few who do not have common courtesy for their neighbors. Arkwright has been in existence for over 200 years, and now we have to create laws because people have lost respect for one another. That's the sad reality, Town of Arkwright Supervisor Brian McAvoy said. After a brief public hearing with no public comment, the Arkwright Town Board adopted a nuisance dog law at its latest meeting. The local law provides the town's dog control officer and law enforcement a mechanism to deal with troublesome dogs. The law is not a leash law or a law to deal with vicious animals posing immediate danger. Instead, it is a law to apply to in-between offenders that are troublesome, either harassing or destroying property as a pattern of behavior and have at least a perceived owner. Residents bothered by roaming dogs can file a complaint aimed at encouraging the owner to keep the dog at home or face legal consequences. The consequences escalate from a warning to a fine to eventual seizure of the dog if corrective actions are not taken. Residents are reminded to call 911 immediately if a dog is vicious, and it will be dealt with under New York State agriculture and market law. A stray dog will be picked up by the dog control officer if one is reported. When the law was first proposed, McAvoy said, "We'll get a law on the books that tries to encourage people to be responsible. Understand that if you are constantly irresponsible, there are consequences. And ensure that neighbors' quality of life isn't destroyed by somebody's dog." The town board also reviewed a late-night excessive noise law proposed to be adopted in January. McAvoy commented on how the two laws are similar in nature and reiterated that neither law would be necessary, quotes, if people would just show a reasonable amount of respect for the quality of life of their neighbors. Ideally, both local laws would serve as a deterrent to poor behavior. McAvoy said the town, quotes, has no interest in criminalizing residents nor in seizing dogs, but needs to do what it can to ensure quality of life for all residents. The town board will hold its 2026 organizational meetings on January 5th at 6:30 p.m. The regular meeting of the board and a public hearing on the noise ordinance will be at 6:30 p.m. on January 12th. Next article. Hanover nears ratification of sheriff's contract, written by Braden Carmen. Hanover. The town board is still awaiting a final copy of its agreement with the Chautauqua County Sheriff's Office for enhanced police protection in the town of Hanover and the village of Silver Creek. Town Supervisor Lou Pelletier stated that he and the Sheriff's Office came to an agreement on a 2-year extension to the current agreement, which itself was a 2-year contract, in the amount of $1,189,847.47, shared between the town and the village of Silver Creek. The total cost in 2024 was $587,579. For the year 2025, the total cost was $602,268.47. The tentative extension calls for a 5% increase to the previous year in each year of the contract. There are no substantial changes to the other terms and conditions of the contract. Once the Hanover Town Board receives and subsequently approves the contract, the Silver Creek Village Board will be presented with the same terms to share the cost. The village approved the previous 2-year agreement in 2024. Pelletier expects to have the contract approved early in 2026. Regarding another contract, the town approved a budget modification to reflect a decrease in legal costs amounting to $9,101.50 pertaining to the Water District No. 1 project, as required by rural development. The town is also evaluating hiring an engineer for a traffic study in Sunset Bay upon advice from its insurance. The town board has also authorized Pelletier to sign an agreement with Timothy Christian to continue to serve as dog control officer for the year 2026 at a rate of $8,000. The next meeting of the Hanover Town Board is scheduled for Monday, December 29 at 3 p.m., designed for bookkeeping purposes to close out the calendar year. The annual reorganizational meeting of the town is scheduled for Friday, January 2nd at 3 p.m. You are listening to readings of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Here are some obituaries. Ann K. Snyder, March 29, 1929 to December 13, 2025. Ann Kane Snyder, 96, died Saturday morning at home in Erie, Pennsylvania, following a brief illness. She was the daughter of the late Daniel Kane and Dorothy Kornprobst. Anne grew up on Pennsylvania Avenue in Dunkirk with her late brothers, Jack and Daniel, graduating from St. Mary's Academy and eventually becoming a licensed practical nurse and real estate salesperson with her husband, the late Gilbert Snyder Sr., at Snyder Realty. The two-term First Lady of Dunkirk when her husband was mayor, Anne moved to Erie and an apartment very close to her daughter, Nancy Adams, when her Robin Street residence got to be more than needed. Anne followed the adventures of her grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and great-great-grandchild with interest and amusement. She was a member of St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Church in Dunkirk and Our Lady of Peace Catholic Church in Erie and the Erie Elks Auxiliary. Anne also enjoyed her two card clubs. The family would like to thank Interim Hospice and all of our private duty caregivers for being our angelic help throughout this journey. Anne is survived by her daughter and caregiver, Nancy Adams, and her husband Robert, sons Gilbert Jr., Daniel, and William, and their wives, Claudia, Sharon, and Louise. Grandchildren include brothers Scott, Casey, and Daniel Snyder, Theodore and Michael Farnham, and their sister, Christine Simon, Jillian Domenico, and Rachel Snyder, along with 15 great-grandchildren. Anne was also predeceased by grandsons Ryan Snyder and Gilbert Snyder III. There will be no prior visitation. A massive Christian burial will be held on Thursday, December 18, 2025, at 11 a.m. at St. Elizabeth Ann Seton Roman Catholic Church, 328 Washington Avenue, Dunkirk, New York. Interment will be held in Willowbrook Park Cemetery. Arrangements are by the McGraw-Kowal Funeral Home, 736 Central Avenue, Dunkirk, New York. Anne will be missed by family and friends. The next one, Joan H. Mosier, 1927 to 2025. Joan H. Mosier, 98, of Brockton, New York, entered into rest December 11, 2025, with family by her side. She was born November 19, 1927, in Manhattan, New York, to her late parents Fitzhugh Jemison and Hazel Hollenbeck. Joan married Jacob Mosier in 1964 and have been together for 61 years. She spent many years taking care of her family, also helping with the family grape farm. Joan enjoyed bingo, lawn sailing, sitting by the Dunkirk Pier, and spending time with family. She is survived by her husband, Jacob Mosier, her children, Lance, Shirley Cave, Bonnie Cave, and Laura Wayne Hartinger. Her grandchildren, Kelly, Christine, Barbara, Joshua, Travis, Ethan, Carrie, Anna, Wayner, Rhonda, Shane, Robert, Michael, Wendy, and Robin. Several great-grandchildren, and several nieces and nephews. Besides her parents, she was predeceased by a daughter, Judy, and her sons Byron, Randy, Richard, called Butch also, Kenny, and Keith. Also a grandson, Adam. Relatives and friends may visit Morse Funeral Home, 19 East Main Street, Brockton, New York, Wednesday, December 17, 2025, from 11 a.m. to 1 p.m., where a funeral service will immediately follow. Interment will be in Portland Evergreen Cemetery. In lieu of flowers, donations may be made to the Brockton Fire Department and or the American Legion, Post 434, Brockton, New York. Online condolences may be made at www.morseseth.com. Deborah Schmiel, 1954 to 2025. Deborah K. Schmiel, age 71, passed away Thursday evening, December 11, 2025, at home, surrounded by her family Anthony, Jackie, Triana, Angela, and Deb's friends Marie and Karen. Deborah was born in Miami, Florida, January 25, 1954. She met Henry J. Schmiel in Dallas, Texas. They later moved to Denver, Colorado, a place they both considered their home away from home. They were married February 15, 1986 in Denver. Deb truly had a hard time accepting the fact that her husband Henry had passed. However, after 25 days of him being gone, they were reunited once again. A hard and emotional time for the family, but knowing they are back together along with all their friends and family that have gone before them gives the family a sort of peace, knowing this reunion is a happy one. Deb was the club manager for the American Legion Post 409 in Gowanda for more than 20 years. Her smile and laugh will be missed by all that knew her. Fun was had, memories were created anytime she was involved. She adored her granddaughter Triana. Deb enjoyed antiquing, girls' night with overnight trips to the casino, visiting with friends, whether it be outside around a bonfire or at friends' homes. She also enjoyed her day trips with friends to the Springville Community Pool during the summer months, weekend trips spending with friends at Kissing Bridge Ski Resort during the winter, and her and Hank's vacation to Key West with friends. Deb will be missed. Survivors include her son Anthony, Jackie Turman of Waterloo, daughter Angela Schmiel of Gowanda, granddaughter Triana Turman, along with a brother, Michael Shamey of Denver, Colorado, and his sister, Rebecca Shamey, also of Denver. Friends may call at the Schindler Funeral Home, 44 Center Street, Gowanda, from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. on Wednesday, December 17, 2025. A service for Deborah will commence at noon following visitation. Memorials, if desired, may be made to the family to help defray medical costs. Rest in peace, Deborah. The next one, Ruby A. McKay, 1930 to 2025. Ruby A. Shear McKay, 95, of Newark, New York, formerly of Dunkirk and Fredonia, passed away on Saturday, December 13, 2025, at the DeMay Living Center in Newark, New York. Born in Buffalo, New York on June 8, 1930, She was the wife of the late Roy McKay and daughter of the late Ira P. Scher and Anna E. Fitch. Funeral services will be held in private at the convenience of the family. Arrangements are by the McGraw-Kowal Funeral Home, 736 Central Avenue, Dunkirk, New York. A complete obituary will be published in this weekend's edition of the Dunkirk Observer. Next, Dwayne G. Christie, 1946 to 2025. Dwayne G. Christie, 79, of the town of Charlotte, passed away Sunday, December 14, 2025, at home. Born November 3, 1946, in Dunkirk, the son of the late Gilbert Christie and Mildred Ball. He was a 1965 graduate of Cassadaga Valley Central School. Dwayne was a veteran of the United States Army, serving from 1966 to 1968. He had been employed at Jamestown Plywood from 1968 to 1977, Jacobson, Weekly, and Olson, Jamestown, from 1977 to 1989, and Carriage House, Fredonia, from 1989 until his retirement in 2013. He is the brother of Grace Christie, town of Charlotte, and also survived by cousins. Visitation Wednesday, 3 to 6 p.m. in Jordan Funeral Home, Sinclairville, where funeral services will be held Thursday at 11 a.m. Burial in Burnham Hollow Cemetery. Memorials to the American Heart Association. Next one, Jamie P. Wachlowski, Sr., May 3, 1975 to December 9, 2025. Jamie P. Wachlowski, Sr., 50, of Dunkirk, passed away suddenly on Tuesday, December 9, 2025. Born in Dunkirk on May 23, 1975, he was the son of the late Ronald J. Wachlowski and Paula K. Rosato Malkowski. Funeral services will be held in private at the convenience of the family. Arrangements are by the McGraw-Kowal Funeral Home, 736 Central Avenue, Dunkirk, New York. One last one, Derek A. Diefendorf. Derek A. Diefendorf, age 55, of Fredonia, New York, died Sunday, December 14, 2025. Arrangements will be announced by David Dengler, Larson Timco Funeral Home. It shows pictures of a brush fire in town in Pomfret. A small brush fire close to a house at 4572 Webster Road in Pomfret created a bit of worry over the weekend. Mutual aid was called to Dunkirk, but was not needed as the blaze was contained and extinguished. Jamestown man charged in stabbing at business. Jamestown. A city man has been charged in a Saturday afternoon stabbing. James Morris, 43, was charged with first-degree assault, tampering with physical evidence, 2 counts of third-degree criminal possession of a weapon, and second-degree menacing. At approximately 12:34 p.m., officers from the Jamestown Police Department were dispatched to a business at 10 South Main Street for a report of a fight. Upon arrival, officers determined that 2 individuals had been involved in a physical altercation inside the business. During the incident, a 3rd individual, identified as Morris, stabbed one of the participants. Officers located Morris a short distance from the scene and took him into custody without incident. The male victim sustained a large laceration to his arm and was transported to UPMC for medical treatment. He was later transferred to UPMC Hammett in Erie, Pennsylvania, for further treatment. Following arraignment, Morris was remanded to the Chautauqua County Jail. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Next article. Chamber celebrates 25th year at annual meeting. The overriding theme of the 25th annual meeting of the Chautauqua County Chamber of Commerce was community building. Chamber President and CEO Dan Heitzenrader opened the meeting by noting, quotes, "We're not your grandfather's Chamber of Commerce. We are connectors, resource providers, and champions for local business people. Working with our many partners," he added, "we hope to make a positive impact and grow our communities." Chamber Board Chair Heather Brown said, "With our strategic directions and organizational mission in mind, the board and staff have been hard at work evaluating our services, events, and activities to increase effectiveness and ensure everything we do is benefiting our members and the business community, which are at the heart of our mission." Over the past year, she added, with the assistance of the Western New York Foundation, we have participated in the Impact Capacity Assessment Program, taking a deep dive into organizational governance, staff capacity, and strategies for long-term sustainability and growth. Although the process has helped us update the organizational bylaws, add updated value statements, and create a roadmap with key performance indicators to continue evaluating and updating our work moving forward. Amy Rogers, the founder and president of Imagine Forestville, was presented with the Pam Leidick Coalition Builder Award. As a hands-on community builder, she was lauded for playing a lead role in developing a group of Forestville area residents dedicated to making substantive progress for their hamlet and making it a welcoming place to live, work, and play. Excuse me. The award is named in memory of Pam Leidick, the first president of the Chautauqua County Chamber, who had a vision 25 years ago to bring together a county-wide coalition of business associations and chambers of commerce around a common goal to strengthen them all financially and programmatically. In his keynote address, former president and CEO of the Cleveland Foundation, Ron Richard, noted, "We're not as divided as we think we are in this country." With a varied career spanning foreign service, private business, and nonprofit leadership, he recounted how community building was a matter of national security. He said, "We had to build relationships while also recognizing that the United States was in direct competition with a number of foreign countries." He recalled the history of the Cleveland Foundation, the first community foundation in the country, and noted there are now over 900 community foundations nationwide and 1,800 across the globe. He pointed out the Cleveland Foundation has played an enormous role in educational development in the Cleveland area, including providing free college and medical school for hundreds of students. As for the state of the country, he said, the federal government has been dysfunctional for decades, and a lot of progress in the country has come from the local level. People live as neighbors and work together to get things done. That's the nature of community, and that's what helps us to solve problems. He added, we need to continue to find ways to come together to seize new opportunities. Elected as board officers for 2026 were Chair Heather Brown, the Resource Center, Vice Chair Emily Reynolds, Cornell Cooperative Extension, Treasurer John Felton, Southern Chautauqua Federal Credit Union, and Secretary Robert Mazza, Chautauqua Cellars, and 5 and 20 Spirits and Brewing. New board members elected were Deborah Ferrer Design Studio, Angela O'Mara, West Main Mercantile, Ken Morris, Brooks TLC Hospital System, Dawn Murphy, Whiz and Smash, and Joe Sanfilippo, Sanfilippo Solutions. Returning board members are John Davis, Asheville General Store, Larry Fiorella, WBKS Wealth Management, Dr. Stephen Collison, State University of New York at Fredonia, Vicki McGraw, Elegant Edibles Catering, Brian Pender, North Lake Development, Chris Selstrom, Jamestown Board of Public Utilities, and Monica Simpson, Chautauqua County Partnership for Economic Growth. In presenting the dominating committee report, Vice Chair Emily Reynolds noted, the CHQ Chamber Board is made up of people who represent chamber members from across Chautauqua County. They come from all geographic areas and a wide variety of businesses and organizations. Turning to the opinion page and commentary, here's commentary by Roland Kidder. One person can make a difference. In 1971, the art metal plant in Asheville closed. What was to be done with it? There were not many companies interested in taking over a 1 million square foot manufacturing facility in upstate New York. The county had taken over the responsibility for the building through its Industrial Development Agency, but for 3 years, this shell of a huge manufacturing facility remained empty. Then, one day, a faraway company from the state of Indiana called and expressed interest in taking a look at it. On the day that a person from Cummins Engine came to take a look at the plant, a newly appointed staff representative of the Chautauqua County IDA was given the key to open the plant door. Excuse me. Inside, they found a mess. Old equipment still there, junk laying in corners, birds flying, cobwebs and dirt everywhere. Instead of just saying, no, we are not interested, the Cummins official said, if you can clean this place up in 30 days, I will bring our team back to take a look at it. The person who made that decision was Dick Allison, a manager with Cummins, who had been tasked with finding and building a new engine assembly plant in North America. True to his word, Allison returned in 30 days, and the rest is history. Dick Allison is no longer a household word here in Chautauqua County. But in 1974, he was the guy who made all of the difference. Not only did he select the Bust-Eye Asheville building for Cummins, he came, started, and for 5 years ran what we now know today is the Jamestown engine plant. When that plant is running at full bore, it employs more than 1,000 people and produces 500 duty truck engines a day. Where would we be today if that 1 million square foot plant were still empty? Allison passed away in September at the ripe old age of 93. His name has long faded from the lexicon of business leaders responsible for keeping and maintaining jobs in this county. However, those of us who knew him have not forgotten. Craig Colburn, who became the next Cummins plant manager, has reflected, "Without Dick Allison, the building of this Cummins plant wouldn't have happened. He saw the potential here, established the team approach to production at the plant, and convinced the powers that be in Columbus to make the investment here." General Douglas MacArthur once famously said, "Old soldiers never die, they just fade away." The same might be said for leaders in corporate America. But for those of us who met and knew Dick Allison, though he has passed, he has not faded away. Every time I drive by the Cummins engine plant on Baker Street, I think of Dick Allison and of that first day when he saw the disheveled interior of it, but pushed that impression aside with a vision to create a state-of-the-art, modern engine plant that has become, over the years, one of the most productive and innovative manufacturing facilities in the nation for Cummins, Inc. 50 years later, we are still beneficiaries of Allison's vision. Sometimes one person can make the difference. Roland Kidder is a Stowe resident. The Observer's View, NFL. Bills, Chiefs share common ending. Over the last 6 years, the Kansas City Chiefs have been the major nemesis of the Buffalo Bills. They always stood in their way in taking the next step, whether it be to the AFC Championship game or Super Bowl. But the Chiefs, who had been to the last 3 Super Bowls, winning 2, looked a lot like the Bills of 1994. That Buffalo team was coming off of being at 4 straight Super Bowls, losing each one. That Drive for 5 season was about as disappointing for the Bills as this year's Chiefs campaign has been for that team and its fans. Adding insult was the injury to quarterback Patrick Mahomes, who will miss the remainder of the season. Quarterback Jim Kelly was in the same situation in 1994. While the team was battling to make the playoffs, he was injured in a home loss to the Minnesota Vikings toward the end of the year. He did not play again that year. Simply put, both the Bills and Chiefs, after amazing runs, ran out of steam. The toll to show up and play your best every game over a long stretch always takes a toll. No matter how you look at it, both those teams were champions. There's one bit of good news for Bills fans in the Chiefs' troubling season. They know Kansas City will not make it to the Super Bowl this year. This means Buffalo remains the only team, for now, to reach the big game 4 years in a row. At this point, even with the great New England Patriot teams, that has never been matched. Today in History by the Associated Press. On December 16, 1773, the Boston Tea Party took place as American colonists boarded British ships in Boston Harbor and dumped more than 300 chests of tea overboard to protest tea taxes. Also on this date, in 1907, 16 U.S. Navy battleships, which came to be known as the Great White Fleet, set sail from Hampton Roads, Virginia, on a 14-month round-the-world voyage to demonstrate American sea power. In 1944, the World War II Battle of the Bulge began as German forces launched a surprise attack against Allied forces through the Ardennes forest in Belgium and Luxembourg. In 1960, 134 people were killed when a United Airlines DC-8 and a TWA Super Constellation collided over New York City. In 2000, President-elect George W. Bush nominated Colin Powell to become Secretary of State. Powell was confirmed by the Senate and became the first African American to hold the position. In 2020, a French court convicted 14 people accused of being accomplices in the 2015 Islamic State terror attacks in Paris against the satirical Charlie Hebdo newspaper and a kosher supermarket. The attacks, claimed jointly by the Islamic State group and al-Qaeda, left 17 people dead, along with 3 gunmen. In 2024, a 15-year-old student opened fire at Abundant Life Christian School in Madison, Wisconsin, killing a fellow student and a teacher. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Dunkirk Observer on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Here's an opinion piece from Froma Harrop. Actions leading America boldly into decline. Bribery, inflation, plagues, crumbling trade links, stalled innovation. All these negatives helped bring down the once mighty Roman Empire. But Rome needed centuries of bad leadership to collapse. Donald Trump seems to be undoing American greatness at warp speed. Sure, the United States possesses strengths that will maintain an aura of power for some time to come. But Trump has turbocharged the kind of destructive governance that could undo us. Start with bribery, gifts that buy special deals, and access. Witness the bags of money going into the Trump family's crypto schemes. Also, Qatar's handing Trump a $400 million jetliner for his eventual personal use. A smaller but astounding act of submission was Amazon's $40 million, quotes, investment in a Melania documentary, most of which goes to her. Grab some Tums as companies needing government favors hand over millions for a White House ballroom bearing Trump's name. Such a blatant grift recalls the Emperor Commodus, 180 to 192 AD, who turned his palace into a marketplace for selling political payoffs or protection. Consulships and governorships were hawked openly. Roman historian Cassius Dio described Commodus's court as a shop for offices. Trump is supercharging inflation, thanks in part to his price-raising trade wars and his spending, the highest peacetime spending outside pandemic disruptions. Add in his tax cuts, which drain the money to pay for the spending, and debt, as a percent of GDP is at or near 100%. High tariffs on China led that country, the American farmer's biggest customer, to go elsewhere for corn, wheat, and soybeans. China has already turned to Brazil and Argentina for these commodities. Trump's response is to call for funneling $12 billion to the suffering farmers, but that's a one-time handout. His unhinged trade policies are fraying long-nurtured trading relationships that could hurt American agriculture for years. Plagues are not hard to imagine given Trump's choice of lunatic Robert F. Kennedy Jr. to lead Health and Human Services. A lawyer who made money suing drug companies, RFK Jr. is determined to sow distrust in vaccine safety and seems to be succeeding. Take the measles vaccine. Lacking serious scientific evidence, RFK Jr. falsely claims that the vaccine may cause autism in children. That has convinced a growing number of parents to withhold measles shots from their children. This rise in vaccine hesitancy is behind several measles outbreaks. Before that, the United States enjoyed official measles-free status. it's about to lose that. Ancient Rome lacked the medical advances we enjoy today, but offers examples of what that means. The Antonine Plague, AD 165 to 180, believed to largely be measles, killed as many as 10 million people across the empire. Kennedy has overseen mass layoffs and buyouts at HHS, and his ignorant attacks on medical expertise have set off resignations of leading scientists. HHS had been a crown jewel of public health and medical research. Which brings us to stalled innovation. Especially jarring is the resignation of the top drug regulator, Richard Pazdur, the fourth to bail, 1 month after he was appointed to the FDA. Such turmoil has reportedly made investors wary of backing cutting-edge treatments. The National Institutes of Health is funding fewer grants. But so is the National Science Foundation, and in areas such as computer science, engineering, math, and physics. No surprise that top researchers are fleeing the U.S. for institutions in other countries. Commodus, again, he dismissed senior scientific advisors and replaced them with entertainers. Domitian, AD 81 to 96, executed senators considered too educated. To distract us from governmental chaos, Trump is building gilded ballrooms and staging colossal spectacles, seen in videos of missile attacks on boats that may or may not be carrying drugs. Wherever he is, Caligula must be enjoying the show. Commentary. Oh, excuse me. Sorry, I lost my place. Wall Street report. U.S. stocks drift ahead of Tuesday's jobs report. New York. Wall Street drifted through a quiet day of trading on Monday, ahead of economic reports this week that could drive where interest rates go. The S&P 500 slipped 0.2%, though the majority of stocks within the index rose. The Dow Jones Industrial Average dipped 41 points, or 0.1%, and the NASDAQ Composite fell 0.6%. Helping to keep indexes in check were stocks in the artificial intelligence industry, which were mixed following last week's scary swings. NVIDIA, the chip company that's become the face of the AI boom, added 0.7%. It was one of the strongest forces pushing upward on the S&P 500 after dropping 4.1% last week. But Oracle sank another 2.7%, following its 12.7% tumble last week, which was its worst in more than 7 years. Broadcom fell 5.6%. AI stocks have been shaky on worries that the billions of dollars flowing into chips and data centers may not produce a big enough payoff to make it worth it. The doubts are causing cracks for the industry, whose earlier surges was the main drive for the U.S. market's rally to records. Besides AI, the main focus on Wall Street this week will be on what several big updates on the U.S. economy's health say. On Tuesday will come the jobs report for November, and economists expect it to show employers added 40,000 more jobs than they cut during the month. Thursday will bring an update on the inflation, and economists expect it to show U.S. consumers paid prices that were 3.1% higher in November than a year before. Such data is under the microscope because the Federal Reserve is trying to figure out if a slowing job market or high inflation is the bigger problem for the economy. The Fed is in a potentially tough spot because fixing one of those problems by moving interest rates would likely worsen the other in the short term. The hope on Wall Street is that the job market weakens, but only by a little, enough to get the Fed to lower interest rates, but not so much that a recession swamps the economy. Wall Street loves lower rates because they can give a boost to the economy and prices for investments, even if they also may worsen inflation. Quotes, with the Fed still appearing to be more focused on labor market weakness than inflation, we're likely facing a bad news is good scenario for the jobs report, according to Chris Larkin, Managing Director, Trading and Investing at E-Trade from Morgan Stanley. As long as the numbers don't suggest employment is falling off a cliff, that would mean the market would likely welcome soft numbers, he said. The spotlight will be brightest on the unemployment rate, not the overall job growth numbers, because the latter is feeling downward pressure from a drop-off in immigrant workers. Economists expect Tuesday's report to show the unemployment rate at 4.4%, which would keep it near its highest and worst level since 2021. Treasury yields eased a bit ahead of the updates. A report earlier on Monday morning also said that a measure of manufacturing strength in New York State unexpectedly weakened when economists expected to see continued growth. You've been listening to a reading of articles and features from current issues of the Dunkirk Observer. We read from the Dunkirk Observer every Saturday at noon. Your reader has been Paul Denning. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of our Northtown Bee papers, which includes Amherst, Clarence, Cheektowaga, Depew, and Lancaster. At 2 o'clock, we have our Southtown papers, which is the Orchard Park Bee, East Aurora Bee, West Seneca Bee, and Hamburg Sun. Following that, 3 o'clock is the Ampole Eagle. Stay with us. The following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print